Good morning, everybody. Dr. Vasquez here, coming to you live on Casual Saturday. That's why I'm wearing a t-shirt. You'll have to excuse me for not being more dressed, but I am trying to drink as much coffee as possible and then do some exercise. However, I wanted to start this conversation reviewing my dietary strategy, which I've been using now for more than 20 years. So that dietary strategy is called the 5-part supplemented Paleo-Mediterranean diet. So the diet is Paleo-Mediterranean diet, which is fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, berries, lean sources of protein, and obviously customized allergy avoidance for people who need that, multivitamin, multimineral, additional vitamin D, which most people need, just about everybody, combination fatty acid therapy, and probiotics, and or more advanced treatments for dysbiosis. So that's kind of the foundational plan that I've used clinically. I first published that back in 2005, and then I reviewed it again in 2011. So I'll provide you those publications along with this whole kind of revisiting of this conversation in 2026. The component that I think needs additional conversation that I haven't really talked about before is the component of protein. So for some of you that might seem a little bit boring, but it's actually not. And so we have to talk about it from 4 different perspectives. So let's talk about protein, dietary protein intake. This is just an introduction, by the way. This isn't going to go into heavy detail, but it'll still be clinically and personally important. So I'm going to start writing now, as long as my electronics allow me to do that. And so I'm going to start talking about dietary protein.
We've run over 1,000 simulations. It can cost around $3 a meal for a piece of chicken, a piece of broccoli, corn tortilla, and one other thing. And so there is a way to do this that actually will save the average American consumer money.
Where to begin? It's a paltry plan for getting full or nutrition. Many people are speaking up on this one, including making their own videos. Consider this a kind of a citizen ad to push back. We're seeing the pushback online.
I am generally curious about what she means by that one other thing, because this right here is the equivalent of one snack wrap. So I hope that one other thing is a second meal.
Maybe you're a person that needs a visual. Here you go. Doesn't that look like a great meal?
Brooke, what are you talking about? This is like the ideal Trump meal in their mind. And the Trump admin is basically doing this. Can we offer you a piece of broccoli in this trying time?
People ask, what's the point of interviewing folks or talking to folks or gathering information? And sometimes people tell on themselves. This out-of-touch, rich, right-wing MAGA elitist actually has the audacity to condescend to the public and tell them that's their eating plan. Trump ran on lowering prices. Now he wants people to just cut back on those little $3 appetizers or get very distracted by a ton of other things. But when staple products are up this much, it's very hard to distract people from either their shrinking banking accounts to buy the stuff or their growling stomachs.
So, again, like I just said, we have to talk about this. Oops. Sorry, I just moved the camera. We have to talk about this from 4 different perspectives. Most, I guess, doctors, clinicians, when they think about protein, if they think about protein, I guess, I don't know. They should be thinking about protein. They usually think about protein from the standpoint of quantity. And in my books, I've provided some guidelines for quantity. The new dietary guidelines recently published for Americans actually reinforce what I've been saying for 20 years about dietary quantity. So rather than go through a bunch of pound and kilo and gram conversions in this conversation, I'll just provide you the graph that I've been using now for 20 years that I published in my books, so you can take a look at it. But again, the overview is when we think about dietary protein, we think about quantity. I guess I could add a 5th component. I guess I will. Since I already mentioned, you have to think about allergies for some people. I think allergies is a grossly misunderstood topic, but the truth is some people do have an immune response to dietary proteins, and so we do have to be aware of that. Quantity, allergies. Beyond that, we have to think of physiologic effects of certain proteins. Because not all dietary proteins are the same. Eating a steak isn't the same as consuming sardines from a physiologic standpoint. Eating a steak or a piece of chicken isn't the same as consuming whey protein. Even if you're talking about the same amount of protein, the physiologic effects are quite different. Beyond that, the next step would be looking at pharmacologic effects. Sorry, my pen just screwed up. So I have to fix that every time. It's such a hassle. I hate it. Beyond that, you have to look at pharmacologic effects. So some protein sources actually provide clinical effects equivalent to drugs. And so if you're really going to talk about dietary protein, you would have to at least look at those four. Those were my four kind of original categories until I added allergies right now. But none of this matters if a person cannot afford to engage in this conversation, right? So some people, a lot of people, and this obviously includes the United States now more than it has in the past couple of decades, a lot of people simply don't have the money to even begin to get into the detailed level of this conversation. So that's why I said that a lot of doctors think only in these terms here, because most doctors are not so financially restrained as to occupy themselves with step number one, which is, can you even afford to engage in this? So that's why this conversation that I've been thinking about in terms of talking about dietary protein requires that we talk about affordability. Because, again, looking at this from an American standpoint, as inflation, shrinkflation, greedflation has become a real issue in the United States over the last couple of years, we can't be so socially disconnected as healthcare providers as to simply think about dietary quality, allergies, physiology, and pharmacologic effects. We have to talk about affordability. So one of my ways of addressing my own protein needs, which addresses each one of those five components, affordability, quality, allergies, physiology, and pharmacologic effects, is I like Spanish sardines. So I think that this can of sardines, I'll have to look at it, but I think I'm paying about $1 for these Spanish sardines. So what do I get from utilizing that dietary strategy? First of all, I like sardines, and I'm also not allergic to sardines. So